Welcome, welcome to the Choosing Happiness Crusade and video series. This is your host, Aspire Magazine publisher, Linda Joy, and I am in conversation today with one of my Aussie friends. So it's early in the morning here and nighttime there, and also it's 5 feet of snow here after two blizzards and 90 degrees and sunny there. So I was telling her, boy, I think the lighting here is off. I feel really washed out, and I realized, oh no, this is the winter New England paleness compared to the beautiful tan of my Aussie friend Tina van Leuven, who is joining me today. So, as you know, this series is all about intimate conversations with women who have, really walked the walk in their own life, followed their heart, trusted their intuition, took really scary chances to follow the calling of their soul on their path to happiness. And Tina is really living proof of that, and her journey continues, which if you follow Tina on social media or on her brand, we call it the Joy Sprinkle Trail. And that's what first attracted me, because how can you not love someone that is on the Joy Sprinkle Trail? So we're going to be talking about that today, how she walked away from the life she was leading to live the life of her soul. So let me formally introduce Tina so we can start this amazing conversation. So Tina van Leuven is the Joy Oracle at Inner Delight and author of Money and Miracles, 40 Days to the Perfect Relationship Between Who You Are and What You Make. She traveled the world as an international flight attendant for 15 years while studying a wide variety of healing modalities, and now coaches passionate entrepreneurs around prioritizing themselves in their businesses and personal lives so they can do what they love without burning out. Welcome, beautiful.
Thank you, Linda. Oh,
I know. And so we were just talking off air, everyone. We were trying to think of when we first connected. Aspire transitioned from print to online virtual in 2009, and that's when Tina and I first met. We were really just attracted to each other's brands and energy and just the way of being in life. And so it's always a delight to have you and be in your presence and enjoy sacred conversation with you.
oh, you too, Linda. I was thinking the other day, gosh, it's just amazing. We have divine appointments, right? And how I was reflecting on how our paths have crossed and how blessed I feel that we obviously had a divine appointment to meet and we both showed up. So.
That's the beautiful part, because like you, and we're going to talk about this in a moment, I follow divine intuition. When I'm led to call someone, it's so funny because I think Alexa Linton shared this previously in one of the conversations. When I feel that nudge, I no longer question it. So sometimes it means I'm picking up the phone, calling someone I've never called before, and say, "Hey, this is Linda Joy. I have an intuitive nudge to call you," like kind of like I did with you, except yours was through email. And I've learned to trust that. And that's what I want to talk about today, because you're the epitome of learning to trust your gut, following it, even when it's scary. And as you shared, for 15 years, you were international flight attendant. You had the career, the job, you were traveling the world, but something wasn't resonating for you on a soul level, and you walked away from all of that. So bring us back to that time where you just said enough was enough.
Yeah, well, I actually had an interesting experience. I had just turned 40 and I was on a flight from DC to Frankfurt. And while I was working upstairs, I was leaning over to hand this passenger this tray, and then a muscle in my butt pinched. And I'm like thinking to myself, crap, this is a pain in the butt. And I could hardly get upright. And I'm hearing a voice as clear as I would hear you speak saying, and you may think that this is a pain in the butt, but what's it going to take to get you off your butt to do what you came here to do and be? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm hallucinating, I'm oxygen deprived, or I'm going insane. Oh dear. I locked myself up in the bathroom for 10 minutes to compose myself, came back out. And after that, I knew that I just had to make the choice. I also had three clients in my coaching business that I ran on the side who were all in career transition or in location transition and coming to me for support with getting through their fear and trusting themselves, you know. And by the time the third lady showed up, I'm thinking to myself, oh no, I better listen up here. And
This is what you were
yeah,
being called to do.
exactly. So after that experience on that flight, I came home and I wrote my resignation letter. I didn't hand it in until a month later, but it was like I just knew that it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. And so for the next month, I just really took the time to use the tools I had for energy clearing to release the fears. And I had no savings to my name, so it's like, gosh, if I'm going to do what I love to do full time, how am I going to be supported? And I also really had a very strong feeling inside and a nudge from my soul that speaking about trusting was one thing, but to live and embody it was another thing. And I felt that it was time to up the game a bit. So yeah, I handed in my resignation, and that was it. So off we went.
And I hear that from so many women in my circle, and it's about that age. My deeper awakening was at 40. My first awakening to enter the spiritual path was at in 1992, so I was what, 29 maybe. But 40 was like the real shift of, are you doing what your soul's calling you to do? Are you doing what everyone expects you to do? And
Mm.
that's what I'm hearing for you too. It's like, did people come to you, like friends and family, and say, "You're what? You're leaving this job to go chase a dream?" Did you get the naysayers like so many women tell me they have for themselves?
I had a little bit, but it was more that people were like, "Well, can't you just see if you can combine the two because you've got such great benefits, you know? Like I could travel pretty much for free, and because at the time I was living in Europe and my family was here in Australia, so I have got friends all over the world. I just really, I thought I had no clue after flying for so many years, how would I go about booking a ticket as a regular passenger? It's like I remember thinking to myself, well, all those passengers do it, so I'm sure I'll work it out. But yeah, so there were a few people who were thinking, were saying to me that they thought it was crazy, to give it all up. But actually, most people, including at the airlines, they were really celebrating my choice. And one of the comments that I got the most was, I wish that I had the courage.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
hear all the time. And I think it's because everyone knows their life purpose, because it's a calling. It's within you,
Mm.
but it's having the courage, and that's what the series is about. Is so many of us go through changes. Yours was a choice. You made the choice. Some of us, or some of the other amazing women in this series, sometimes the choice is made for you. Grief,
Mm.
loss, death, loss of a job, financial ruin. In your case, you had the power of being able to make the choice yourself, and that must have felt really validating that you were honoring yourself enough to make that choice.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really think about it at the time. It kind of felt like, just like you would take the next breath. I thought, well, yeah, of course I'm going to do this. And I think actually that was, I remember saying, God, it's either wisdom or insanity. I think I was in the phase of insanity while I let everything go. And then later realizing that I needed that nudge to really cut all the ties to the past. I felt like I couldn't really fully step into living my message if I kept a back door open or a safety net in place. And I felt it was a bit extreme on the one hand to just say, that's it, I'm done. And on the other hand, when I look back now, it's realizing, oh my gosh, that expedited my journey in ways that I don't think would have happened if I had stayed or tried to juggle both. And it really took me on a journey of really upgrading to the next level then, because I got the trust part, but then it was like, oh, I think it's time for faith and really embody faith. And that really called for me to surrender. And really, by making that step and letting everything go, it really brought up all the stuff that I had unconsciously around, do I believe that I can be supported financially when I am following my heart's calling? And
Mm.
I almost got to the point of having to declare bankruptcy.
I've
And
been
yet,
there. I mean, so I fully understand it. Until we heal the wounds of our old beliefs, we keep almost
yeah,
sabotaging and attracting.
yeah.
And I know a lot of your work is about that, and that's what your Money and Miracles was about. Because I followed that journey, the 40 days, I think, online,
Mm.
and it was such a gift for your own healing, but also for the woman who, and probably a few men who joined the program and the journey. So when you were discovering, so you left, and then, in your introduction, it says that you started training on healing modalities. Now, when you were a flight attendant, did you have all those same interests? Were you already on that path of spirituality, healing, and all this, and then it got accelerated, or once you quit, the path became open to you?
I grew up in a family or both my parents are very, very, very spiritual. And so I was exposed to lots and lots of different things from a very young age. And it was actually when I was 18 that my mum had enrolled in massage therapy training with my dad. And then when the course dates came closer, my dad couldn't go, and my mum said to me, "Oh, do you want to go?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." I happened to have that night off. I went, and I was like a fish in the water, and it's like completely up my alley. I could feel energy. I could see the things. I knew where people were experiencing pain. The train, from then on, I went on to study many different body healing modalities and lots of other things. All the teachers always wanted me to work on them, and it wasn't until years later that I realized why. Because I thought, if you're going to go and do this, obviously you can feel energy, because otherwise, why would you be doing this, right? But yeah, so I just kind of was guided in there. Then I went through a phase of where I really didn't want people to know. The massage thing was one thing because that was sort of acceptable by then. But I had been studying astrology and numerology and lots of other energy modalities. And I kind of wanted to keep it quiet. So it was like I didn't want to rock the boat and didn't want anybody thinking that I was a bit woo-woo or crazy or whatever. And then one day, I remember I was living in London, and a girlfriend of mine stopped by unexpectedly, so I didn't have time to clear my books. And there in the middle of the room were my astrology books. And she comes in and she's like, "Oh, great." And I'm like, oh, and I'm thinking, oh, crap.
It's like your cover was blown.
Yeah. And the funniest thing is that from that moment on, friends started to come by when they'd have a new boyfriend, see if I could check their compatibility. And so it became kind of cool to have those skills. And then the funny thing was too that when I was going through the healing science training while I was flying, I was doing my final research paper, and I had asked the manager in the domicile if he wouldn't mind if I left a stack of my questionnaires before I went on a trip. Now, at this time, only people who knew me knew what else I was doing, and otherwise I just kept it quiet. But I went on that flight. 9/11 had already happened, and then I came to DC, and there was an email that had been sent out by the manager informing everyone how proud he was that I was doing this research, and would everyone please support me. And I'm like, oh
It
no.
was like you had suddenly been pushed out of the spiritual closet.
Yes. And from that day on, it was like people were coming up to me and saying, "Oh, are you Tina?" And I was like, oh. So
How
it's
did
been this.
you how did you integrate all that? Because to go from hiding to being almost forced out, right?
Hmm.
How did you accept and integrate it? Because I'm sure there's so many women here who have intuitive gifts or who have callings, and they're going through the same thing, Tina. They're almost, I don't want to say ashamed, but they're afraid to be themselves, and they're hiding behind, the role they play in their regular life. How did
Yeah.
you integrate that, um,
Yeah.
and really own it?
Well, that kind of took care of it, that I couldn't hide anywhere anymore.
Yeah.
That was one thing, right? But yeah, and from that moment on, I realized, wow, actually, you know what? It really, it made me realize that I have these gifts and I may as well just celebrate them. I was terrified, and really, from that moment on, I mean, it's been years. I can honestly say that it's actually through the writing of the chapter for choosing happiness. It felt like that was a completion of a cycle of programming from eons, which brought up the fear of being annihilated or destroyed or outcast for letting my light shine. So, therefore, getting the people pleaser program activated and being terrified of being rejected or judged. And most importantly, what I uncovered there was the fear of being part of a group of women and experiencing jealousy projected at me, which was just, I would rather jump off a cliff, which I write about, than have to deal with the jealousy projected at me. And I've been feeling like that's been really shifting. So that's just one way of that. The fear that makes no logical sense at all, that I've been seeing many, many, many women dealing with, that it's just something that's been carried over through the generations. And because it's not been that long, in fact, we still live in a world where, in some parts in the world, if you let your light shine, you can get stoned as a woman. And then I'm not talking of, of having a joint. No. So,
I like that one. Now, but so now you're out of the spiritual closet, you're doing the work. I love watching your life now because I call it like, oh, there's a word for it. Location independent, I guess. Where
yeah.
you call it in your writing the Joy Sprinkle Trail, Adventures on the Joy Sprinkle Trail, because right now you trust and allow guidance to bring you, and you fully trust in how you're going to be supported. So as we were talking earlier, it's like, okay, you're off to the next adventure. You've been living in one area. If I'm correct, it's Perth, Australia. And now you're off to the next adventure. And that tells me that you have a lot of trust now, where at the beginning you might have struggled with being taken care of by the divine. It's like
Mm,
you feel that it's time to move on, you just move on. And I love that because your business is based that you can do that. And because it's virtual. And
mm.
how did you start living that way? Just being not tied down to one location.
Yeah, so I guess that was part of the thing of when I left the airlines. I really didn't think ahead. I thought, well, everything's already taken care of, and I'll just follow the guidance as it shows up, and we'll see where we go. And then social media really started to open up, and I discovered how to interact. It became like the part I loved about flying was that I was constantly interacting with people all over the world. I love it. Before I was working for the airlines, I traveled a lot too. So I've got a very global spirit. I feel at home wherever I go. And I love having lots of friends and connections in different continents. So it's like a global family. And when I started to realize how I could connect on Facebook and Twitter, and really finding others who are living, from their soul and living from their heart, then it gave that same sense of connection. And then I realized, oh my gosh, as long as I have internet, I have a laptop, I can go anywhere, it doesn't matter. And so, yeah, that kind of led me it made it easier to just pick up and go as well. But it also was something that when I discovered how social media could be used to really connect with others heart to heart, that it was a vision of mine that I would be able to just follow my joy sprinkle trail, and wherever that would take me, that I can do that because having, my Skype, my coaching calls through Skype and using the internet technology and everything. So yeah.
Well, it's a beautiful testimony to what you said at the beginning, where first you had to learn to trust, but not just trust, put it into action, which is faith. And I've been on both sides. I lived a lot of my younger years in fear-based, like if I can't control it, then, I don't feel safe. And now I live completely like you and like so many in this series from the place of trust and faith, and following those divine nudges and knowing that when you're receiving them, it's because it's for the highest and best of all, like us connecting. And some of
Mm,
the women in this series, the way we were brought together, um, was really just divine intervention. So
mm,
for you now, because like you said, your story was in choosing happiness, was really another level of healing for you. The writing of it. I mean, I heard that from so many women. They're saying, your authentic storytelling model, Linda, it made me dive deep into the last remnants of
mm,
shit that was
yeah.
still left from the old story. And thank you for allowing me to clear that energy once and for all. So it was really, the writing journey was a healing moment for many of the women in choosing happiness. What's the next step for you as you continue on the Joy Sprinkle Trail, in following your trust and your guidance?
Well, I felt a nudge. It started sort of late last year, and then I did resist it for a while. As I wanted to stay in my comfort zone a little bit longer, and then I was like having my little arguments with the divine. It's like, well, surely, as I do every now and again.
Yeah.
and then, and then finally realizing, yeah, okay, no, okay, it's time to go. So I felt a nudge to go, and I am actually just in the middle of packing up all my stuff to put it into storage and continuing the Joy Sprinkle Trail here as I signed up to do some house sitting adventures. And it's opportunities here to discover different parts of Australia, where I get to look after people's homes and their pets. So it's like, some people have doggies, others have cats, and and whole farms. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, you get
The
to
opportunity.
experience a whole new way of living and being. But at the same time, you are also, that's a really a big trust thing, because you're putting your own things in storage. You're letting go of what is to say, okay, divine, I know I'm being led. And as you shared with me off video, that you're already starting to meet some of the most amazing heart-centered people going, you're going to find the perfect house sitting job. What kind of beautiful freedom is that, to have a whole new experience, get to integrate into a life for a little while, enjoy the area, the people, all that, and then say, okay, what's next? But it
Yeah.
goes back to courage. It takes a lot of courage and faith, um, to live that way.
Well, I guess the thing is that I realized that after trying to run the show, that really, I wasn't doing a very good job of it. So I might as well just hand over the steering wheel, which is kind of like being in when you're having driving lessons, the instructor's got the steering wheel the whole time anyway. So, what was I
Exactly.
even thinking? But I might as well relax, let the divine take the lead and just allow myself to take inspired action when I feel the nudge to do so. And that's the process for me, has been to learn that sometimes that inspired action is going to the beach or having a nap, even when there is a mile-long list of things that need to get done. But actually, when I allow myself to really listen and take care of myself, then everything just goes so much smoother. And I always say, wow, the divine already knows everything. So it's like a treasure hunt, which is what I call my joy sprinkles. And they just show up and they're leading me to my next destination. And it's like, ooh, so everything's already taken care of. All I have to do is show up. So I give
Mm.
thanks in advance that everything is just joyful and with ease and with grace. And when the control freak in me has a fit, then I have a little conversation with that part and say, "Okay, sister,
Mhm. Well,
chill."
I think we all have a tendency to argue with the divine, you know. It's like, excuse me, no, I don't want to move now, or no, I don't want my
Yeah,
car to die at this time, you know. But I think that's normal to do that, you know. And anyone that says they don't argue with the divine, come on. And then you have to laugh though and giggle and know that because you know, whoever your divine source may be is up there going, are you done with your little temper tantrum? Are you going to let me continue guiding you? So I see it as, you know, part of the process of arguing. But now I argue with a light heart, where before it would be more of the control, like, are you hearing me? Now I go,
yeah,
you know, could you give me an extra week on this project? You know, I need more time.
yeah.
But it's done with a lightness of spirit, and I can see that yours is too. And
Mm,
as we've discovered, control's an illusion anyway. We're never truly
mm,
in control. And when we can own that and let it, that need for that false illusion, if we let go of the need, that's when I think miracles happen. You know,
mm,
there's no way I could have known my path would lead to what I'm doing now. You know, as you and I have talked personally, I was the queen of self-sabotage. I was a former welfare mom, high school dropout. If you ever said to me back then, Linda, one day you're going to be a best-selling inspirational publisher, inspiring women around the world, and they're going to follow your brands because of the love and wisdom that your authors and contributors put out, I would have laughed. I would have said, "Are you freaking kidding me?" But because every time I get these intuitive nudges, like you on the Joy Sprinkle Trail, things unfolded in ways that I, Linda the person, could never have made happen. Does that make
mm.
sense? And I know you get this. It was every
Yeah.
time I got out of the way, a beautiful new door opened. And I kept following, like you call them, joy sprinkles. I kept following the breadcrumbs and going,
Mm,
okay, I'm going to pick this one up. I'll trust the next one will be there when I'm ready. And when we let go of control, I think that's when our life unfolds. That's when we live from that heart space in front of instead of from the head space.
yeah, it takes practice, and I definitely, I think, I would say that one of the most beautiful things of that we have available for us, especially as women, women can really drag each other down if they haven't cleared their own crap. But if they've cleared their crap and they're committed to really celebrating one another, then the support that is available in even having just a small group of women together is unlike anything else in this world. And I think it's so important for, I think, every woman to have a circle of friends that is there to celebrate her greatness and to celebrate her achievements and to really encourage one another when those doubt gremlins kick in and to just remind one another of our brilliance. And yeah, that's,
It's so
mm,
important. And like you, and like so many women, in my younger years, it was very, I would pull back from female relationships. And you know, I don't know why. Maybe it was in my teens and 20s. I had very close long-term girlfriends, but not a big circle. It was more, I always protected my energy. So now, today, to be able to have the sacred feminine community that I have now, and you know how much I love bringing women
mm,
together for projects. Um, and part of my feminine collaborative model is exactly what you're talking about. It's about, you know what? There's no more time for the masculine energy of competition, fear-based shit. Every project I birth and my magazine, everything, I look at everything as a sacred container. And when the women in that sacred container show up fully in their feminine and with love and with support for each other, that's when magic happens. You know what I mean? And
mm.
So I so get what you were just sharing with us. It's so important to surround yourself with women who remind you of the amazing person that you
Mm.
are, and I'm blessed to have you in my life to do that for me, and vice
Mm.
versa, I hope for you, as well
Yes.
as all the other women in
Yeah.
this series who have really come together as, yes, they're all authors in choosing happiness, but it's such a sacred soul connection on a aside from that, that when we came together, it was like this magical um, group of women who really got it, who really got what it's like to love and support each other. And it's been amazing to see the vortex created around this whole Choosing Happiness project. Um, as a publisher, it's beautiful to see that, but as a woman, it's even more powerful for me to see
Hmm.
because it shows what is possible when women come together. So,
Yeah.
as our time together comes to an end, which it always seems like these conversations could go on and on. So, is there any piece of wisdom, guidance, last minute divine download coming through that you want to share as we come to an end?
I would just say, that for any woman who feels that she would like to be doing something else than that she has allowed herself to do up until this moment, to just check in for a moment, who do you need permission from, or what are you waiting? What are you waiting for? And to ask yourself the question, if you had all the support that you needed, all the resources available, if you knew that the divine had you covered, then what would you do? And go and do that. Reach out to other women to support you with that, and just shine your light in the way that each and every one of us is here to do in our own unique ways. And as we come together, I think even through, like you're saying, with the choosing happiness, reading the stories in there, as everybody connects or reads these stories, it's creating this immense field, like you call it the happiness vortex, that is available for anyone to tap into anytime, no matter where you are in the world. And so this is available for you right here, right now. Live full out and kiss your fear goodbye. And if you need support with it, then reach out, and get that, because life is just too short to hide your brilliance, and the
Hmm.
world needs you.
Oh, it's so true. Thank you, beautiful. Thank you for
Mm.
just showing up so fully, authentically. And as I end every conversation in this series, choose love, choose joy, and choose happiness because you so deserve it. Blessings,
Thank you,
everyone.
Linda.
Thank you, Tina.